HOA Bulldozed my sister's wheelchair ramp. Didn't know she's a governor. Who controls their funding? My sister Dana had always been fiercely independent, even before the accident. After a drunk driver sideswiped her on a rainy evening 3 years ago, she woke up in a hospital bed with 2 broken legs, fractured spine, and a new reality, one that included a wheelchair. But if you think that slowed her down, you don't know Dana. She worked harder than anyone I know, going through months of painful rehab, fighting through discouragement, and eventually becoming one of the most powerful women in the state. She bought a home in a quiet suburban neighborhood earlier this year. It wasn't for prestige, it was for peace. She didn't want to be treated special. She just wanted access. That's why, with her blessing, I helped design and build a wheelchair-accessible ramp at her front entrance. It wasn't just thrown together. We followed every guideline. We submitted the architectural plan, got the permit approved by the city, and made sure every measurement was ADA compliant. The wood matched the trim of her house, the handrails were clean and sturdy, and even the slope met state code. It was functional, safe, and honestly it looked good, but that didn't matter to the neighborhood HOA. Within a week of finishing it, Dana got her first letter. They called the ramp an unauthorized structure and said it didn't match the community's aesthetic. She replied with a copy of the permit, along with photographs and inspection reports. That should have ended it. It didn't. More letters came. This time they threatened daily fines until the ramp was removed. Dana, always composed, kept every single notice. She scanned them, printed backups, filed everything chronologically. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't go on social media. She just watched. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Thursday morning. Dana was at her physical therapy session. I was at work when she called, voice calm but hollow. They bulldozed the ramp, she said. I dropped everything and rushed over. Sure enough, her front lawn looked like a war zone. A piece of yellow caution tape hung crooked from a garden stake. The ramp? Gone. Obliterated. All that remained were some torn-up bolts and splintered wood buried in the dirt. They hadn't even notified her. No warning. No court order. Nothing. Just brute force. Someone in the HOA had hired a private contractor to destroy something legally built on private property. That's when they crossed the line. Had no idea how badly. See, Dana wasn't just a wheelchair user. She wasn't just another quiet homeowner. She was the newly elected governor of the entire state. And the Discretionary Community Development Fund, which supplied this OS road maintenance, security, and recreational grants, was directly under her authority. They thought they were intimidating a disabled woman into compliance. What they really did was awaken the last person in the state they could afford to ignore. And unlike them, Dana wasn't going to bulldoze anything. She was going to handle this legally, quietly, and with full power. When Dana rolled up to the wreckage of her front ramp, she didn't even blink. Most people would have broken down, cried, or screamed at the top of their lungs, but not her. She just stopped at the edge of the uneven dirt, looked down at the shredded bolts and broken splinters, then slowly took out her phone and began taking photos. Every angle, every crack, every chunk of wood left lying like a warning. Her face didn't change. No visible anger, just focus. I was standing behind her, gripping my fist so tight I thought I might snap a bone, but she stayed perfectly composed. That was Dana's strength. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was control. When you saw it in real time, it was more intimidating than any outburst. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, the HOA president strolled by. Her lawn like he owned it, Leonard. Arrogant, smug, and wearing a salmon-colored polo like he was going golfing rather than trespassing. He didn't offer an apology, no explanation. Just this smug smile and a condescending tone as he said, "You can reapply for permission like everyone else. Maybe we'll approve it this time. It looks nice." The nerve of that man. To destroy a legal, accessible structure, and then pretend she needed his approval to reclaim basic human dignity. I started to say something, but Dana raised a hand slightly enough to stop me without saying a word. She looked him straight in the eye and replied, "Thank you for the clarification. I'll be sure to follow the proper channels." Leonard gave a smug little nod like he'd won some kind of game, and turned and walked away, probably thinking he'd just taught her a lesson. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Dana had already shifted gears into something far more dangerous than legal retaliation: strategic coordination. That night, while the neighborhood slept, Dana made a quiet series of calls. Not to lawyers, not yet. She contacted the state's Municipal Oversight Committee, the people who audit HOA spending and governance, and the Disability Access Board, whose job it is to investigate ADA violations. Then she called the Urban Infrastructure Funding Office, which reviews every dollar of discretionary development funds given to communities across the state. She didn't tell them who she was at first, just gave the facts. Calmly and clearly, pictures, permits, violation reports, and then she dropped the final detail that she was the sitting governor of the state and would be exercising her duty to protect civil rights and enforce compliance with state law. By sunrise, the first flags had been raised. The HOA didn't know it yet, but the storm they thought they avoided by bulldozing her ramp had just begun to form quietly, legally. And with a trail of evidence that not even Leonard's smug grin could survive, the HOA board had no idea what was coming. A week after they destroyed Dana's wheelchair ramp, they scheduled a mandatory community meeting, likely in an attempt to control the narrative. Rumors had started to swirl that the woman they bulldozed wasn't just any resident, but no one had the full story. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse. It's the kind of space lined with beige walls, stale coffee and folding chairs, meant to give the illusion of authority.
Oh, is this?
Residents filtered in slowly, whispering and looking around nervously. The HOA president stood at the front with his arms folded, trying to project confidence. But even from the back, you could see he was sweating. Then the doors opened and everything changed. Dana entered without saying a word, flanked by her chief of staff and 2 ADA compliance officers wearing state-issued ID tags. She didn't speak right away. She simply rolled forward, quiet and calm, and placed a thick black binder right in the center of the board's table. The sound it made echoed across the room. Everyone turned. Leonard's smirk vanished.
Dana
Opened the binder and began laying out its contents one by one: higher resolution photos of the destroyed ramp, time-stamped and geotagged, official permits from the city, printed chain of HOA letters demanding removal, and finally, a formal ADA violation report signed by the state's compliance director. Then, the first time in that room, Dana spoke, her voice steady, measured, and completely unshaken. "I'm not here today as your neighbor," she said. "I'm here as the governor of this state, and this community is now under formal investigation for civil rights violations." The silence that followed was suffocating. You could feel the panic settling into every breath. Leonard's face turned an unhealthy shade of gray. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. One of the board members stood up abruptly and walked straight out the door. Another tried to offer some kind of apology, but his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Dana didn't even look at him. She turned a single page in the binder and continued. "Your funding for road maintenance, beautification projects, and your community security initiative, all of it flows through my office. As of this moment, those funds are frozen pending review. And depending on the outcome of the investigation, your tax-exempt status and nonprofit registration may also be revoked." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't lean forward. Didn't threaten. She simply stated facts, legal, precise, and devastating. The room stayed frozen. No one dared to interrupt her. No one knew what to say. This wasn't a political stunt. It was justice being served with surgical calm. And the people who thought they could bully a woman in a wheelchair into silence now found themselves stripped of power, cornered by the very system they thought they controlled. Dana didn't need to win the room. She already had. The news spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Within 48 hours of that HOA meeting, headlines blared across local and national outlets. Governor's wheelchair ramp bulldozed by HOA. Civil rights violation sparks outrage. Powerful silence from state leaders sends strong message. What started as a quiet, ugly act of discrimination turned into a statewide reckoning. Dana never once gave a dramatic press conference. She didn't lash out or slam her fist on a podium. Instead, she let the facts and the footage speak. For themselves, the images of the destroyed ramp, the official permits, the ADA violation documents. They told a story even louder than any soundbite could, and people listened. Disability rights organizations, civil liberties advocates, and even veteran lawmakers came forward in support. The community that had once turned a blind eye to Dana's struggle now rallied behind her without hesitation. State auditors launched a full-scale review of the HOA's finances and governance. Violations poured out like a leaking pipe. Misused. Funds ignored maintenance complaints. Biased rule enforcement. It was all there. Pressure built fast. Within a week, the state imposed substantial fines on the HOA. Leonard, the smug president who once told Dana to reapply if it looks nice, was forced to resign. He didn't even make a statement, just packed up and disappeared from the neighborhood. Like a coward, avoiding eye contact. Remaining board members were ordered to undergo mandatory sensitivity and ADA compliance training. Every single one of them. But justice wasn't just about punishment. Dana knew that. She didn't want revenge. She wanted change. And that change came in the form of the very thing they took from her, the ramp. Only this time, it was rebuilt by the same HOA board that had once tried to erase it. They were required to cover the full costs out of their own operational budget. No grants, no donations, no help from the city, just their own pocket. In this time, the new ramp wasn't just functional, it was beautiful. Crafted from pressure-treated cedar, lined with smooth stainless steel railings, and finished with a slip-resistant surface. It wasn't just a path to the front door, it was a symbol. Dana watched it all happen from her living room window. A mug of coffee resting in her lap, the same calm expression she'd worn since day one still on her face. She didn't gloat. She didn't boast. She just observed. Because for her, the win wasn't about humiliation. It was about restoration. About dignity. And when the job was finished and the workers packed up their tools, she quietly wheeled herself out and approached the new ramp for the first time. That afternoon, the new HOA board delivered a formal written apology to her doorsteps. Stamped and legally binding. Dana read it once, nodded, and tucked it away in a drawer. Then she unveiled the final piece. A small bronze plaque installed neatly at the base of the ramp. It didn't mention her title, the lawsuit, or the scandal. It simply read, "Access is not optional. It's the law."